Hey, what's going on, Who That Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast, and welcome to another edition of the State of the Saints podcast live on YouTube. Thank you very much for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. Thank you for spending your Monday. If you're watching this on a Monday, thank you for spending your Monday with yours truly to talk about the New Orleans Saints. I wish everybody had a great weekend. Hope you enjoyed yourself. For all the fathers out there, hope you had a great Father's Day. I enjoyed my Father's Day. Got an opportunity to spend time with my son the majority of the day. Watch some kung fu movies. Didn't really go nowhere, but nevertheless, I still had a good time. And I just love being a father, man. Definitely one of the greatest things that is in my life. And those that may not know, you always see me with this video on. I got a dog tag on. There's actually a picture of me and my son, something that was given to me on my very first Father's Day by my fiance. So I wear it everywhere. I rarely ever take it off. So I love it. I love my son. I love my family, man. So, I greatest feeling in the world, man, to be a father. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the New Orleans Saints. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Tre'Quan Smith. Now, for those that y'all should already know, most of the time, we talk about the same usual suspects on the State of the Saints podcast. We talk about the Drew Brees, we talk about the Alvin Kamaras, we talk about the Michael Thomas, but we never really get opportunity to talk about some of those Saints, those guys that are behind the scenes, role players, if you will. So this is going to be about Tre'Quan Smith, and is it time? This actually came from Iceman T, man. Iceman T was actually he called in on the State of the Saints podcast live on Friday night, and he really, gave the Saints the Riot Act, and he really opened my eyes and made me realize some things about Tre'Quan Smith, made me do some investigating, man. And quite honestly, I must say, man, I have to, after further review, as the referees will say, I have to say, man, it's not looking good for Tre'Quan Smith, man. Looking at these stats, and I got them up on the screen right now. I'm looking at them. Looking at these stats and this production, I have to say, man, he's looking like a failure. I'm just going to be honest with you. He's looking like a failure. He's looking like a guy that just was a waste of a draft pick. Now, I will say this, and you're going to find out later on in this live why I feel like you can look at this two ways. But I'm just looking at these stats, and I'm just going to read this to you. Okay, in 2019, Tre'Quan Smith, his biggest game was 5 receptions for 56 yards, and that was in Week 17 against the Carolina Panthers. And that's when Michael Thomas I think he had a broken hand or something like that, so the Saints weren't really throwing the ball his way, kind of putting him in danger or whatever. They kind of had him out there almost similar to being a decoy. Tre'Quan Smith has 5 receptions for 56 yards. Okay, and then when you go back to 2018, which I'm about to do, look at his stats. He had 2 games, okay, where he went over 100 yards. It was a game against the Washington Redskins. Of course, he had that big 60-yard touchdown that, gave Drew Brees the record, so having the most yards in NFL history by a quarterback. And then, of course, that Philadelphia Eagles game, we had 10 receptions for 157 yards and a touchdown. So those were his 2 biggest games, man. Besides that, you have to say that Tre'Quan Smith hasn't done much, man. I'm looking at a lot of slashes and stuff like that indicate that he hadn't played in a game. I'm looking at some of these games in the 2019 season. Week 3, nothing. Week 4, nothing. Week 6, nothing. 7, nothing. 8, nothing. Then you have 15 and 16, nothing and nothing. And a couple of those games he missed, but a few of those games he was in the lineup and he didn't get a target or a catch. And like I said, you can look at this 2 ways, okay? Tre'Quan Smith had 5 touchdowns last season. I think he had like 18 receptions. And then the season before that, he had 23 catches and he had 5 touchdowns. So you could say that the reason why Tre'Quan Smith hasn't been as productive is because he doesn't get those many targets. Looking at these stats in 2019, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 2, and 5. So it looks like to me like they're not throwing his way. So you can look at it like, okay, why aren't they throwing his way? Is it because his number isn't called? He isn't a part of the rotation? Or is the fact that he just can't get open? But I will say this, man. I understand, and I've been watching Drew Brees for a very long time, and I do know that Drew Brees throws to the open receiver. Now he has in the last few years. He only seems like he just looks for Michael Thomas and nobody else. But I will say that Drew Brees throws to the open man, no matter what I'm saying. Like if what I'm saying, Michael Thomas was the target or Alvin Kamara was the target or not, he throws to the guy that's open. So Tre'Quan Smith, man, is looking like an absolute disaster right now. And it's some embarrassing stuff here, man. I mean, he was a third round draft pick coming out of Central Florida. He had a lot of upside and a lot of promise. He has a lot of breakaway speed. And I understand that the Saints, they play a lot of short ball these days due to the fact that Drew Brees can't get the ball down the field. But Tre'Quan Smith, honestly, man, even like when you have people like Taysom Hill or Teddy Bridgewater in a game, you really don't see him really being as productive. Now, I will say that some of the targets, that he had, most of them in the 2019 season came from Teddy Bridgewater and not Drew Brees. Now, I have to say this, man. I'm really confused by this. He's looking like a disaster on paper, but it's one of those things where you have to ask why. Why is he looking bad? Why is he looking the way that he is? Is it Sean Payton not calling his number? Is it him not getting open? Or is it just the fact that he's just an absolute disaster? I mean, but it's interesting to know, man, because these targets and these receptions, man, are not indicating that this guy is productive. And I have to say, there was an article that came out. I don't know if it was NOLA or some other website where they're talking about Ty Montgomery could possibly be taking Tre'Quan Smith's job. Now, we know that Ty Montgomery, for the most part, played running back when he was with the Green Bay Packers, but he wears number 88 because the wide receiver position is his primary position. And the way that he's working out, the way that he looks, how big and physical he is, I have to say, man, Tre'Quan Smith's job is indeed in jeopardy if he doesn't come to camp and he doesn't perform, man. I don't think you can get any more passes from Tre'Quan Smith. I really don't. I don't think you can give him a pass like, oh, man, it's because everybody was worrying about him being a number two or he's not a number two and he needs to step up. Like this right here, man, this training camp is going to decide if Tre'Quan Smith stays with the Saints or not. I really feel like if he comes in and he has a lackluster camp, the Saints are going to end up cutting him because you have a lot of guys that are going to come in. These guys are going to be young and hungry. I'm interested to see about Emmanuel Butler. I feel like he's probably going to take a huge step from year one to year two. You got Marquise Callaway, a guy who plays with a lot of confidence coming out of the University of Tennessee. I see Juwan Johnson, a guy out of Oregon, who's a good possession receiver and a good blocker on the outsides. Especially when Oregon had their running game going in the RPOs. So Tre'Quan Smith might get lost in the shuffle in this situation, man. And I'm interested to see how he's going to perform. I mean, I seen him working out. I think he was working out with C.J. Gardner-Johnson in the offseason. They're both Florida boys. So they were together, working out in the offseason. But Tre'Quan Smith, he's going to have to step it up, man. I mean, I see a couple of things that indicate that he can be a little bit tough. That pass that he caught against the Philadelphia Eagles back in the day where he ended up taking a big hit in order to get a touchdown. And not to mention, when he took the hit from the safety from the Falcons that knocked his helmet off and busted his lip and got him stitches. So, I mean, he's not afraid to go out there and catch the ball. He's not afraid to go out there and be tough. I've seen a couple of times where his helmet came off. He's still blocking for the play. So Tre'Quan Smith, I mean, he has a level of toughness, man, but I still feel like, he's a little bit soft when it comes to situation. I feel like he can be bullied. And it don't matter how tough you is, man. Like, you can't just turn soft. I mean, you can't just turn toughness on and off. It's rather you're tough or you're not. In some plays, he shows that he's tough, but in most cases, he shows that he's not. So he had to step it up. Kirion said, what's good, fam? Happy Father's Day to you, my brother, man. Happy Father's Day to you too, Kirion. Ryan Pearson says hi. James said, good day. Jerry Poole, what's going on, man? Slim Jim says, it takes time for receivers and tight ends to learn our system. Slim Jim, I mean, that's true. I will say that it does take some time for them to learn our system. But, I mean, looking at some of these stats, man, I mean, they're very alarming, to me. And I understand that the Saints have a very complex system. But when you see guys that come in and they contribute right away, and they come in and they, catching passes all over the place, It just makes me wonder, like, is something wrong with that particular player? I mean, back in the day, you had people like Lance Moore, you had people like Willie Snead, you had people, you know what I'm saying, that actually just came in and they actually performed at a high level. They contribute in a big way, and I'm just wondering what's going on with Tre'Quan Smith. Now, we could say that he hasn't learned the offense yet, but I'm just saying, like, I can't really take that. I can't really take that excuse, man. It's rather you got it or you don't. And I have to say, man, right now it don't look like he have it. And you can't just say, okay, it's just about the system, man. I mean, you may not know the system, but man, you can't teach like certain skills. You can't teach footwork. You can't teach blocking. You can't teach hands. You know what I'm saying? So you can't teach physicality either. So I think those are a couple of things that he just needs to work on, and that's something that an offensive scheme cannot give you. Do you think Tre'Quan Smith will be an impact player on this football team? To be honest, Brian, that's the question of the day. Looking at these stats and just looking at the overall body of work, all signs indicate that that's not going to happen. I feel like the New Orleans Saints going out there, getting Emmanuel Sanders, bringing in a guy who doesn't really know the system better than Tre'Quan Smith, and most likely is going to be the number 2 receiver, or even in case of the number 1 receiver, you know what I'm saying, if something happened, knock on wood, to Michael Thomas, you have to say that Tre'Quan Smith, is going to get lost in the shuffle. I think that the Saints are becoming impatient with him. I think that they threw him some passes in Week 17 against the Carolina Panthers just to kind of, build up his confidence or whatever like that. And to his credit, he caught all 5 of the targets that were thrown to him. He had 5 receptions, he had 5 targets at 56 yards, and he even had a touchdown. And also, man, he has a knack of, catching the ball in the end zone. You know what I'm saying? Like, he has, like, very low reception numbers, but he has 5 touchdowns. And that's pretty decent. You know what I'm saying? That shows you right there. Maybe if he get an uptick on some of his targets, maybe he'll have, 9 or 10 touchdowns. You never know. But he just going to have to step it up, man. And maybe Sean Payton, I don't know what kind of offensive system that he has or game plan he has for Tre'Quan Smith. Maybe he needs to use him more. Chemo says, what it do, TJ? What's going on, Chemo? Hey, TJ, I got a Saints cup to share with you. I will text it to you, man. Please do that, Jared. Thank you, man. If you want the ball, you got to get open and run routes accordingly. I agree, man. Like I said, if this was another team, if this was like another Saints team or another team that's in the NFL, then I would have to say, maybe they just need to throw him the ball. But knowing Drew Brees and know how he works and know how he distributes the ball to anybody that's open, you have to say it's on Tre'Quan Smith, man. It's rather Drew Brees don't trust him to get open, or it's the fact that he's not getting open. And I'm going to say that it's because he can't get open. Tre'Quan Smith, thank you for the $2. Talk smack now that I'm here, fool. Man, please. I'll still talk smack to you. And it's not talking smack when you can back it up with numbers. But thank you for the $2. I don't talk smack, man. I talk real. Smack talking is when you talking stuff that don't have any concrete evidence on. Looking at these stats, it's pretty evident that Tre'Quan Smith needs to step it up. So don't blame me, blame the stats. He seemed timid at times. Yeah, I mean, he too hot and cold for me. Some games, like, I just feel like he play hard, but I don't know. Maybe one of those players that allow people to get inside of his mind. I don't know. Maybe it's like one of those situations that, get inside your head or whatever like that. Maybe a lot of smack talking be going down on the field. Maybe there's a lot of physicality, man. He not prepared for it, but I think he tough, man. I just think that it comes in spurts, though. Do you think Tre'Quan Smith could be an impact player on his team? Already answered that. I think Quan Smith was still recovering from injuries versus the Rams game. Could be, man. I mean, but, man, what happened to, Ladd his first year, and like I said, some games I just feel like he just does not show up. I mean, he had a couple opportunities in that wild card game that passed him by. This will be Smith's year. He will break out this year. He will get the targets. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm looking forward to seeing, man. Like I said, he has 5 touchdowns. So very little targets, but when he does catch the ball, it means a lot. So I'm just interested to see if the Saints actually just call his number. Will he be able to Will he be able to answer the call? Man, to me, I just feel like he probably just needs a little bit, a few more targets, man. So I feel like Sean Payton need to get his man some targets, maybe throw the ball his way, see what he can do. But I get Drew Brees. Drew Brees is not going to really put the ball in harm's way. So I mean, Tre'Quan is going to have to really get some real true separation from the corner or the safety in order for him to get the ball. That's just not the way Drew Brees rolls. Okay, I mean, unless you like Michael Thomas, where he feel like he can throw him open and he has like a really big catch radius. I don't know if Tre'Quan Smith has a really big catch radius. I just think that Drew Brees, knows his receivers. And you look at Michael Thomas, I mean, he has a really big catch radius. Okay, he really does. And then you look at other players, it's like they're more like possession guys. They probably have like very little catch radius. You know what I'm saying? You have to throw it to them in stride or throw it to them while they're wide open. And I think Tre'Quan Smith falls into that category. Hope everyone had a blessed Father's Day weekend as I did. Yeah, I definitely did, man. I enjoyed spending time with my son. Honestly, Trey had his moments at times, but he's always been silent or hurt. This season, he'll be tested more in the passing game. Jarhead, that is true, man, but I'm very concerned about his place on the team. I know that Sean Payton, he really doesn't have patience for some of these receivers, man. I mean, he's always out there trying to look to find the next best guy that can contribute to the team. Maybe like some of these unsung guys, that are out there that nobody really paying attention to. We know that Sean Payton loves those guys that fly under the radar, where he can really show the world how smart and how much of a genius he is, to be like, man, I discovered this guy. Look what I did. He did it with Jimmy Graham. He tried to do it with Brandon Coleman. He tried to do it with Arrington. You know what I'm saying? He tried to do it with so many of these other guys that have come through the Saints locker room, and tried to contribute. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like when it comes to it, you look at Emmanuel Butler, I feel like he's just the next project that the Saints have. A guy that basically had a red shirt year his first year. So, Sean Payton is going to be looking forward to trying to unleash this 6'4", 225-pound monster on the NFL. So hopefully, Tre'Quan Smith can step it up where he won't get lost in the shuffle. I think we will let his rookie contract in and either franchise tag him or let him go. I don't know if he's gonna go that far. I'm telling you, man. I feel like if he doesn't have a really strong training camp, he might be on the outside looking in. I think the Saints like him, and I think the Saints kind of tolerate him a little bit more than others because they drafted him. And when you're drafted, especially like in the top 3, teams have a little bit more patience with you. Like when you're like 4 through 7, probably not so much, because they feel like, oh man, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're gonna get these guys to compete. So when you're a first, second, or third round pick, teams have a little bit more tolerance to you because they don't want to feel like they wasted or squandered their draft pick. So I don't know, man. Like, I feel like if he doesn't come in prepared, if he doesn't come in ready to work, if he doesn't come in the best shape, then I feel like the Saints are really going to kind of push him back down the depth chart, and we're going to be seeing him playing late in the third and the fourth quarters of preseason games. And you all know what that means. When you start seeing guys in the third or the fourth, it's a quarter of a game in preseason, that means they're competing. So don't be surprised. That's all I'm saying. I can totally tell that's the real Tre'Quan Smith. Yeah, me too. I could tell, man. Definitely, I really could tell on that. But I appreciate them $2 he dropped, you know what I'm saying, helping out the show. Appreciate it, though. He never gets open, bruh. It seems that way, man. It seems like he's never open. I went back and I watched some Saints games over the weekend, and I watched Tre'Quan Smith when he had that big game against the Philadelphia Eagles, which, like I said, all this came from Iceman, and him giving his comments on Friday night, and he was talking about Tre'Quan. I went back and I took a look at him, man, and I was out there watching Tre'Quan run routes, and I was out there watching Tre'Quan block. He's a good blocker, so when it comes in the running game. Like, he's a really solid above average blocker. His footwork is just, it needs some work, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, he needs some work. I feel like he gets jammed on the line of scrimmage a little bit too much for my liking. I feel like he has good hands, and he's really fast, But the thing about it is, you can be as fast as Ted Ginn Jr. or Marquise Goodwin or, any of these other guys. But if guys jamming you on the line of scrimmage and it disrupted your routes, nobody is going to know that. And you combine that with the fact that the Saints are not a vertical team. Like, they're not the team that really throws the ball down the field, throw deep, bombs away, bazooka arm type team. I think he kind of suffered from it. I mean, if Tre'Quan Smith probably in Kansas City or something like that, he'll probably flourish because you have somebody like Patrick Mahomes that can get him the ball. But when the Saints are playing like close, immediate routes and stuff like that, and Drew Brees has little arm strength to deal with, you have to be able to run routes. Like, that's what people need to understand. Like, when you be like, man, when we throw the ball down the field, like, if the Saints actually had I feel like if the Saints actually had a quarterback that had a rocket arm, a big arm, some of these guys would be eating, like a lot. But that's not the way that they roll. You got to have good hands. You got to have good physical strength, and you got to have good feet. You have to. You know what I'm saying? Because the ball is coming out quick. 3-step drop, you need to have some separation by the time Drew Brees gets into his third step. You know what I'm saying? Or if you're his first read and you don't get separation, he's going somewhere else. That's just what it is. Especially like with a 3-step drop, you definitely got to make your decisions quickly. So if he's making his decision quickly, the wide receivers got to be able to get that separation really fast. So I think Tre'Quan Smith suffered because of that. I'm telling you, if Tre'Quan Smith probably played in Kansas City, or he played even in Buffalo, you know what I'm saying? Like, where quarterbacks have big arms that can get them ball down the field, I think he'll do really well. And I think a lot of people will be asking a question like, man, why he couldn't do this for us? It's because the offense and how it's structured. I feel like the offense and the way that it's structured hurts Tre'Quan Smith. If the Saints had a quarterback with a lot of arm talent, I think we would really see how good, or we'll see the full potential of Tre'Quan Smith. I think we need a number 3, like a Josh Dotson or a healthy Willie Snead after his time in Baltimore. I agree with that. I feel like the Saints, what they're missing is a big physical third down receiver. You know what I'm saying? Somebody in a slot. If you look at the Saints over the past few years, the Saints always had a guy that can move the chains. For a long time, during the Sean Payton era, it was Lance Moore. Lance Moore was Mr. Third Down. You put him in a slot, he gonna move them chains. Then after him, it was Willie Snead. Willie Snead was Mr. Third Down for the Saints. I feel like that's something that the Saints are missing. They don't have that Lance Moore, Willie Snead, Anquan Bolden type wide receiver that can be physical and also be able to move the chains. I think about Anquan Bolden, man, who is one of my favorite receivers to ever play the game. Yeah, Anquan Bolden most likely ain't going to end up in the Hall of Fame, but he was an incredibly physically gifted wide receiver. He was a big physical guy. You know what I'm saying? You can always count on him, to catch the ball on third down. Wasn't afraid to go over the middle. Wasn't afraid to take a hit. Was violent after the catch. And I had a lot of respect for him. And even though he had some things to say about the team, even Brandon Marshall, man, I have a lot of respect for guys that become running backs after they catch the football. They're ready to get that yak. And I feel like that's something that the Saints are missing. I feel like that is something that they need to have. Like, if we're talking about number 3 receivers, I don't think we need to be talking about vertical guys. I don't think we need to be talking about guys like that. I think we need to be focusing on like big physical guys that aren't afraid to go across the middle, aren't afraid to take that hit, and catch the ball on third down. I feel like that's something that the Saints really truly need. Now, I think that they have tight ends that can do that now. I got a lot of respect for Josh Hill. He's a good third down possession pass catcher. Adam Trotman, I feel like he can emerge to be a guy on third down, and of course Jared Cook. But as far as the wide receivers are concerned, I feel like that's something that the Saints are indeed missing. He had the potential to be a major part of the record-breaking offense. 9, 13, 87, 7, 28, 17, and hopefully 10. Yeah, man, I hope so. The Saints got some good wide receivers, but, some of them just need to step it up. Ryan Grant is a great wide receiver that is a free agent. He went to college at Tulane and was a beast on the Redskins when he was drafted. He smoked our defense in 2017. Ryan Grant, I know a lot about him. I watched him a lot, even in college. And yeah, what I'm saying, he's a good player. But like I said, me personally, I'm looking for those possession receivers. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking for those guys that can move the chains on third down. And if we talking about the Saints, like let's just be honest about this, folks. Saints defense in earlier 2017, around the time when they played the Redskins, what I'm saying, before they really just started to figure it out. I think it was like week 8 or something like that when they played the Redskins. I mean, I don't know, man. They still was working some things out. So how impressive really was that he beat the Saints? I mean, you look at the Saints secondary over the past couple of years. I mean, they make the most mediocre wide receiver look like they were the second coming of Jerry Rice. So how impressive really was that? The only person I can really say I was just really impressed by, as far as like, man, I feel like it's the true. This guy is the true Saints killer. Is Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen is the Saints killer. Okay, that boy can play. That guy is a fool. Okay, so Adam Thielen, like that is the Saints kryptonite. Like Adam Thielen, like nobody on the Saints secondary. I don't care if it's Lattimore. I don't care if it's Jenkins. None of them dudes can hold Adam Thielen. None of them. Absolutely none of them. That is the true Saints killer. All the rest of those guys, man, like I just feel like, well, you know what I'm saying? Like Saints don't really possibly take them too serious. And honestly, like I said, the Saints make the most mediocre quarterback look like they're the second coming to Joe Montana. And they make the most mediocre wide receivers look like they're the second coming to Jerry Rice. Create separation, Trey main problem. I agree. His footwork is bad. Go back and watch the film, folks. That's all I gotta say. Go back and watch the film on Tre'Quan Smith and watch his footwork. Okay, don't pay attention to the game. Pay attention to his footwork, and you'll see why. Kenny Stills, maybe I forgot about Kenny Stills. I put him in that category too. Kenny Stills was a tough guy. He was a guy that can get vertical too, and he was one of those guys like that was like towards the end of Drew Brees, like, prime or whatever like that, where he can still get the ball down the field. Kenny Stills was eating because of that. Marshawn Lynch was our kryptonite also. I wouldn't say that Marshawn Lynch was the Saints' kryptonite. I wouldn't say that. One big run don't justify that to me. It don't justify that to me. I don't know. Like I don't agree with that too much. I mean, I feel like Marshawn Lynch was a lot of people's kryptonite the way that he ran. So I mean, you really couldn't truly stop this guy. I mean, especially when he was like in his prime. I don't care who he was. I mean, he did the same thing to the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, he did the same thing to the 49ers. He did the same thing to the Saints. So I mean, man, take your pick. I feel like Adam Thielen is that guy, you know what I'm saying, that really just truly destroys the Saints every time he plays. Like, that was the guy. Because I think the Saints played Marshawn Lynch in the Superdome a couple of years ago, and the Saints ended up winning that game. That's when Jimmy Graham came back, and the Saints ended up winning that game. I think Marshawn was playing, if I'm not mistaken. And, the Saints did a pretty good job at bottling them up. Steve Smith was one too. Yeah, Steve Smith was a Saints killer. Yeah, man, that was the only time when the Saints secondary was soft. I'll never forget. I think he was talking noise, and I think Roman Harper hit him after he scored a touchdown, and then Malcolm Jenkins tried to come down there and defend him, and Steve Smith flipped Malcolm Jenkins over and grabbed him by the helmet and stuff like that, was shaking him like this. I'm like, man, this man out here punking him. But I would say, Kenny Vaccaro, what I'm saying, he did try to stand up to Steve Smith, what I'm saying? Like, I will say that about Kenny Vaccaro, he was out there, what I'm saying, like he was ready to go to war with Steve Smith. So, yeah, Steve Smith definitely was a Saints killer. Let me see, Roddy White in his prime a little bit. He used to be killing the Saints. I don't know, man. The Saints just had some very tough players, man. The NFC South always had some. They always had some guys who was good enough to go one-on-one with the Saints and dominate them. Even like who was that? Floyd, you know what I'm saying? The guy that came from the San Diego Chargers, if I'm not mistaken, for a long time, you know what I'm saying? He was out there. killing them. Carolina, like I said, always had Steve Smith. They had Roddy White. Algie Crumpler was out there doing his thing. So, I mean, yeah, man, the Saints always had to deal with some tough competition in the South. We should draft a wide receiver in the first round like a Devontae Smith from Alabama or a Terrence Marshall from LSU. Uh, yeah, maybe. But I don't know if the Saints going to draft a wide receiver next year in the draft. I think they might go like, I'm just looking down. They might end up like drafting. I don't think they're going to draft a quarterback because I really feel like the Saints want to keep Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill. So I don't see that happening unless there's like this can't miss prospect by the time they pick. I can see the Saints probably drafting like another linebacker or something like that, or even depends on like if they keep Sheldon Rank as a defensive tackle. Don't be surprised on that too. Robert Meacham was a guy in his prime. Robert Meacham was a tough guy, man. I mean, big vertical threat, had good hands, and he was a good role player. Him and Devery Henderson, man. So I was watching him, I was watching like all of the '09 Saints games. I was watching them, like the highlights and stuff like that, kind of like the clips. And man, Robert Meacham was out there dogging people, man. He was out there doing his thing, man. Like, Drew Brees throwing the ball, Meacham was gonna catch it, man. Meacham was catching passes over two defenders. He was out there making people miss. Sometimes like when you don't see a person in a couple of years, you have a tendency to forget how good they were or how much they contribute to the team. And Robert Meacham was pretty doggone good. Overall, Mike Vick, number one killer. I don't know about that. I don't think Michael Vick was the number one killer of the Saints. I really don't. I really don't feel that way. I feel like the Saints really did their thing against Michael Vick. Michael Vick was just an exciting football player, but I wouldn't put him. I'm trying to see where I put him in the top 5 among Saints killers. I put Steve Smith up there. Like I said, I put Roddy White up there. For a good little while, I put Doug Martin up there. The muscle hamster. He had a couple of good, man. He used to dominate the Saints quite a bit. And I don't know, man. That's a tough one. I don't know if I put Michael Vick in there. I have to think about that one. Can you analyze a person from the college level and the per level now? What is your opinion on him, Tre'Quan Smith? Can you analyze a person from the college level and the per level now? What is your opinion on him, Tre'Quan Smith? Like I said, I think Tre'Quan Smith is a good football player. I think he's decent. I just think that he needs some work. I think he needs some help with his footwork, man. Like I said, the way that the Saints actually run plays, the fact that they aren't a vertical team, I think it kind of hurts him. Because I feel like if he played like with Patrick Mahomes, man, he'll be eating out there, because he can use his speed to get separation. But when it comes to like how the Saints play, nah, I don't think that's a good fit. The Saints need receivers that got good feet. You know what I'm saying? Good feet and good blockers. Because Drew Brees don't have the arm strength to get the ball down the field. So some of these guys that can be vertical threats, they're suffering in the Saints offense. It's just what it is, man. There's a reason why Taysom Hill be in the game throwing the ball deep downfield. And you see guys, like Devontae Harris or you see people like Tre'Quan Smith down there trying to catch the ball deep because Drew Brees can't get him the ball. And, the thing about that can help Devontae Harris is the fact that he's a good wide receiver screen runner. You know what I'm saying? Like, he can make people miss because, first off, like, what do punt returners actually do? They make people miss in close proximities. You know what I'm saying? So if the Saints actually throw him a wide receiver screen, he can probably make the first person miss, and he goes up the field. So that kind of caters to his strength. So if he don't necessarily have to be a vertical threat right now, so that he can still eat in the Saints offense. But when you're a wide receiver and your best skill at the time is your your top end speed, but you can't use your top end speed because Drew can't get you the ball. Yeah, it's tough. So you have to like go out there. That's why I feel like people like Michael Thomas are so successful. Is the fact that he can run the close routes and he can get separation, from the defender, in the first couple steps. That's why he eats so much. That's why I feel like Drew Brees count on him so much because of his footwork and his catch radius. These guys are hurting, these guys are hurting because their strengths or weaknesses inside of the Saints offense because they can't really do anything else. Deontay Harris or Tommy Lee Lewis, man, that's not even, come on, man, stop it. That's not even a competition, man. You take Deontay Harris over Tommy Lee Lewis. What has Tommy Lee Lewis done? Tommy Lee Lewis, he's known for getting hit by Roby Coleman, in the NFC Championship game. Which I'm thinking about that right now. If Roby Coleman would have hit me like that, I would have played dead. And I know he probably thought he was probably gonna get a flag, and he wanted to get up real quick, like, man, you ain't hurt me, man. They would have thought I got shot. He would have hit me, boy. I would have stayed down the ground, and be like, they would have had to carry me on the sideline. I feel like if he would have did that, then the referees wouldn't have had no choice but to throw a flag. So, hindsight is 20/20, and I'm pretty sure he didn't think it was gonna end up like that. But they would have thought I was dead. They would have thought, because there ain't no way in the world I would have got up. If he wouldn't have got up, the Saints would have been in the Super Bowl. That's just the truth. If Tommy Lee Lewis would have stayed on the ground, the Saints would be in the Super Bowl. Because the referees wouldn't have had nothing. They would have had no choice but to throw a flag. They would have thought I got shot, for real. As soon as he would have hit me, I would have been on the ground, okay? They would have had to get the smelling salts. They would have had to get the EMT, the stretcher to get me up out of there. And I probably could have got up just like he did. But I would have took one for the team. If Tommy Lee Lewis would have stayed on the ground, the Saints would be in the Super Bowl. That is a fact. That is a 100% fact. The way that he got hit, the impact of it looked violent enough. If he would have stayed on the ground, the referees wouldn't have had no choice but to throw a flag, straight up. And the way the NFL are about, head injuries and stuff like that now, telling you, he was one dramatic concussion away. And I ain't saying he wanted to get a concussion. I'm like, act as if he had one. From the Saints can you imagine? Like, think about this. If Tommy Lee Lewis would have stayed on the ground, this man would have been a hero in New Orleans. Like, he would have been a hero. He would have been a hero. He would have been the guy known for taking one for the team. That's what he would have been. Y'all remember when Tommy Lee Lewis got hit and he fell on the ground like he got shot? That's what he would have been. But like I say, hindsight. Sometimes the best way for a player to break out is when they bring in competition like Key Kirkwood. We signed Brandon Marshall and Key Kirkwood beat him out. Yeah, man. I like Kirkwood, man. I just think that if he probably wouldn't have got hurt and had so many injuries, I think the Saints would have kept him. I think he's going to be pretty good for the Carolina Panthers, man. I don't think he's going to be no number one or number two, but I think he's going to be in a slide. I think he's going to be eating out there, man. I'm looking forward to seeing what Key Kirkwood can do. I thought that Tommy Lee Lewis and Deontay Harris are on the same team. It's weird. Yeah, I think Tommy Lee Lewis, he still play for the Saints. They signed him back. They signed him back at the end of the year. They signed him back. So when Drew Brees leaves and retires from the league, do you still think the team's going to be good with the new quarterbacks on it? Yeah, I do. I just think that a lot of people, like I said, we're so focused on the way that the Saints are right now. We think about how they are back then, and we think about Drew Brees and the Saints, and we look at some of the guys that have been on the team, and we look at Drew as the undisputed leader of the team. But I don't think we look at how these other guys have emerged to be leaders, man. Demario Davis is a leader. Cam Jordan is a leader. Malcolm Jenkins is going to be a leader. I feel like Michael Thomas is going to be a leader. These guys have good guys on the team that can be the cornerstone players in the future. You know what I'm saying? I understand Drew Brees and what he has contributed, But, I mean, if I can use a biblical example, it's the same thing with Moses. You know what I'm saying? Moses went off, or he got the people to the land of Canaan, or the land of milk and honey, if you will. He passed the baton to Joshua or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that's just the way that it is. You know what I'm saying? He passed the baton and told Joshua to bring the people into, into the land of milk and honey, because Moses brought him as far that he can bring them. And I feel like it's the same way with Drew Brees. Drew Brees has done some great things for the New Orleans Saints organization. He has really, led the Saints to the promised land. By promised land, I mean the Super Bowl. And also, like him breaking all these records has given the organization credibility over the past couple years. And yeah, you can make an argument to say that, some of the playoff performances have been lackluster, to say the least. But Drew Brees and Sean Payton have been one of the reasons why the media has been, really talking about the Saints and putting them in that discussion. And like I said, when Drew Brees decides to retire, I mean, you look at some of these other guys that have come in and emerged as leaders. I think we saw that when Drew Brees was injured. I mean, you seen Cam Jordan step up. You seen Demario Davis step up. You seen the defense step up and be better than the offense was. So I would have to say that I would definitely say that they're going to be much better. Now, Tre'Quan is solid. He's sort of underrated. I don't know about underrated, man. I mean, you underrated when you putting up big numbers. Man, okay, look, he is not underrated. I'll give you some names that's underrated. Marcus Colston was underrated. Okay, he was good for a long time. Nobody really paid attention to him. Anquan Bolden, who I mentioned, is underrated. Okay, he's a guy that nobody really paid that much attention to. If I can go to basketball, Anthony Hardaway. Penny Hardaway was underrated. Tim Hardaway was underrated. Okay, Scottie Pippen was underrated. So, I mean, that's what I call underrated. Guys that put up numbers that was solid for a long time, but nobody really paid attention to. Allen Houston, I think you can appreciate that one, New York Phenom. Allen Houston was underrated. You know what I'm saying? Like Eddie Jones was underrated. So, I mean, those are some guys when I think about, somebody being underrated. Those are the guys that I think about. Guys that were good, that kind of flew under the radar. But when I look at Tre'Quan Smith, I mean, he ain't flying under the radar, man. You know what I'm saying? He ain't flying under the radar. These numbers are unacceptable, man, for a guy in his position. So I definitely don't believe that. Tre'Quan is good in the red zone. I agree with that. Like I said, looking at these numbers, NY Phenom, I mean, he puts up very little receptions, but he has 5 touchdowns in his first 2 years. So he has 10 touchdowns over a 2-year span. And like I said, 18 receptions this past season, 23 the season before that. So, and for you to have 5 touchdowns, that's pretty doggone good. But I don't think he underrated. I mean, where are you in the game? You know what I'm saying? Where are you when the Saints are not in the red zone? That's all I'm asking. But I don't consider him being an underrated player. Like, for me to consider you underrated, like, you have to be putting in some work. Like David Johnson. You know what I'm saying? David Johnson is underrated. That's another guy. I feel like is underrated. Hakeem Nicks is definitely one of the most underrated receivers of all time. Yeah. Hakeem Nicks was a really good wide receiver. The problem is, man, he couldn't stay healthy. I mean, he had really good hands. I mean, I watched him since he was at North Carolina. Like, he was always good. But, like, he just couldn't stay healthy, man. When all those injuries were piling up, that's when he fell off. Oh, you saying Hicks? No. You're talking about Akeem Hicks, okay? There's Akeem Hicks, and then they got Hakeem Nicks. I can understand like why, you would think about that, Jarhead. Their names are kind of similar, but Hakeem Nicks is the wide receiver. Akeem Hicks is the defensive tackle. Yeah, so I mean, and they both played for the Saints, so I mean that's understandable. I think Tre'Quan Smith should have another shot in a wide receiver 3 slot. What do you think, TJ? I think he should, man. I said it before. I think the pressure of not being a number 2 can help Tre'Quan Smith. Because when you're a number 2, the team expects for you to be up here right now. Like they can't rely on you trying to develop. Like they ain't got no time for that. Okay, they ain't got no time for you developing into what you're gonna be. You got to be that right then and there. For example, the Atlanta Falcons, okay, that team, okay, they had Julio Jones, right? They had Julio Jones, and then they had Calvin Ridley who came along, okay? Calvin Ridley was ready to be that number two. You weren't going to take Julio Jones' spot because Julio was already, solidified as one of the best wide receivers in football. Calvin Ridley just quickly got into that spot, and they were able to make him the undisputed number two. Not much they really had to teach him. He already had good hands. He already had good footwork. Maybe he need to build up some strength because of his small frame, even though he was kind of lanky. But that's stuff that you can actually work around. You know what I'm saying? He already had like the physical and the athletic talent. But when you talking about Tre'Quan Smith was just a breakaway guy in college. Like he just had that speed, and quarterbacks can get him the ball. So he still had some issues with his hands. He still had issues with his feet. So for him to be your number two, it was going to take like a work in progress. Like he couldn't just come in and automatically be the number two. And the thing about it is, it was like when nobody else, that Saints fans can actually depend on and look at. So he was, the number two in the mind of Saints fans, even though he wasn't ready to be in that spot. But in comes Emmanuel Sanders, a guy that has established himself as a really good route runner, good hands, and an extremely talented wide receiver. He comes in being that number two. So that gives you an opportunity, if you want to keep Tre'Quan Smith, to be able to develop him into possibly being that number two. I mean, and who knows? Emmanuel Sanders, he's 33 years old. He's not going to play forever. And I think he signed maybe like a 3-year deal with the Saints, if I'm not mistaken. I can't see him playing for 3 years with the New Orleans Saints. That'll be incredible because by the time he gets done, he'll be around 36, 37 years old. So who knows? You know what I'm saying? If the Saints are patient enough with Tre'Quan, they see some more that he developed in the offseason this year and he's stepping up, who knows? Maybe they'll put him in that spot. But I think this is make or break for him. You know what I'm saying? I think if he comes into training camp and it's the same old Tre'Quan, I think that he might end up losing his spot and even losing a place on the team. Who is your favorite Saints player of all time and why, TJ? My favorite New Orleans Saint of all time. That's a tough one. Well, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I'll just eliminate Drew Brees. I think Drew Brees is probably going to be one of everybody's favorites. So without mentioning Drew Brees, my favorite New Orleans Saint of all time was Pierre Thomas. Like, Pierre Thomas is probably my favorite Saint of all time. I just like the way that Pierre Thomas played the game of football. Nothing was given to Pierre Thomas. Pierre Thomas was number 3 on the depth chart, number 2. The Saints bring in another running back. Pierre Thomas goes to the back of the list. They bring in Reggie Bush, wanting him to be the starter. Pierre Thomas just was steady. You know what I'm saying? Pierre Thomas took advantage of his reps. Anytime the Saints put him in a game, he did big things. He was the first Saint to actually score a touchdown in the Super Bowl. I don't know, and this goes to show you right here that how stubborn Sean Payton is. Sean Payton just refused to allow Pierre Thomas to be the starting running back of the Saints. Like, he refused. Like, he'll bring in Mike Bell. He'll bring in, some of these other cats, Reggie Bush. You know what I'm saying? Like, so many other guys to start in front of Pierre Thomas. The only thing Pierre Thomas did was, run some of the best screen game you ever going to see. Run between the tackles, make people miss. So Pierre Thomas probably going to be like my favorite Saint of all time, man, just because of how he carried himself, man, and how he just would not be denied. Like, I have a lot of respect for people that start off in the mailroom, man, and they make their way to the executive floor. And that is the prime example of hard work, dedication, and, if you work hard, good things will come to you. So Pierre Thomas would be my favorite. That's what I'm saying. Ted Ginn was dead in the water. He had too much pressure to produce. Now that we have Sanders, he can learn and grow. Yeah, you can look at it that way. Hey, TJ, from a diehard Saints fan like you, who do you want as the next quarterback post Brees? To be honest with you, it wouldn't be none of the guys that we have right now. The next quarterback of the New Orleans Saints that I would love to have after Drew Brees would be Matthew Stafford. I would love to have Matthew Stafford as the next Saints quarterback. I know a lot of people don't really like Matthew Stafford as much. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you don't think that he's good enough, but Matthew Stafford is one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the NFL. Even when the Saints play the Lions, you know what I'm saying, you always see Matthew Stafford putting up big numbers. Even though the Saints might end up winning the game, Matthew Stafford always like be going blow to blow, toe to toe with Drew Brees every time. I like Matthew Stafford a lot. I feel like Matthew Stafford needs to come to an environment where guys can actually win some games. Matthew Stafford put up big numbers. He ain't never had a good running back. Never. I think the closest thing that he had to a good running back was Kevin Smith out of Central Florida. But by the time he went to the Detroit Lions, the Central Florida basically ran that man onto the ground. Okay, this dude was carrying the ball like 40, 45 times a game in Central Florida. But he never really had a quality running back, and then he had Megatron for all those years. You know what I'm saying? All he had was him throwing the football. I feel like if the Saints get Matthew Stafford, like if Drew Brees retires, Matthew Stafford, I think his contract may be up this coming year. I feel like the Saints need to go ahead and sign him. He's still young enough, you know what I'm saying, to produce, and he still has that big arm. And I think that when people be talking about, man, the Saints need to have a better vertical threat. They need more explosive plays. Matthew Stafford is the guy. Notice I ain't say Aaron Rodgers because I still think Aaron Rodgers is going to end up being with the Packers for quite some time. I still think that it's probably going to be 1 or 2 more years. And then, you know what I'm saying, I think the chicken's going to come home to roost. Then they're going to give Jordan Love the keys to the kingdom, you know what I'm saying? But Matthew Stafford definitely would be my choice to be the next Saints quarterback. I want Deshaun Watson or Stafford. Yeah, Deshaun Watson, I like him, but I don't think Houston going to let him go. They ain't that crazy. What about the Clemson quarterback, Trevor Lawrence? I don't think the Saints going to be in a position to get him. And honestly, I think he's a little bit overrated. That's just my personal assessment. I think Trevor Lawrence is overrated. I think that he had a really good season, his freshman year. And, yeah, he's a freshman phenom. And he did carve up the Alabama Crimson Tide like a Thanksgiving turkey. But I really didn't see much out of Trevor Lawrence's second season. People had him winning a Heisman. I mean, I think he played pretty pedestrian. I think he put the ball in harm's way. Maybe it was the pressure. Maybe it was the pressure that he had. You know what I'm saying? Like to be the guy of in the face of college football. Maybe it got to him, but I'm not buying what they selling. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know. He gotta prove it on the pro level. I don't say go crazy for him or nothing like that, but somebody gonna pick him as the first pick overall, and I don't think the Saints gonna be bad enough or even bad at all to get him. Tre'Quan ain't it, man. It's just that simple. Fam, he has had multiple opportunities to step up. I mean, that's true, you know what I'm saying? But, Iceman, what are we saying that he's not it at? You know what I'm saying? Is he not it at number 2? Is he not it as a wide receiver at all? Does he belong in the National Football League? Is the Saints a bad fit for him? I mean, there's a lot of unanswered questions when it comes to Tre'Quan. But, I mean, I understand what you're saying. Looking at these numbers on the screen, that ain't it. But maybe, like I said, just a bad system. Maybe the system doesn't fit. Matthew Stafford on the Saints, that arm talent with Sean Payton's multiple chips. Yep. I'm telling you, man, it'll be incredible. Do you think the next quarterback we have the same respect with Sean Payton that Drew Brees dig on this team? Probably not, man. I mean, probably it's going to take a while for the Saints to get a quarterback that would be on the level of Drew Brees and have the respect that Drew Brees has from Sean Payton. I mean, it's gonna take a while. Like me personally, I'm just going by what I see. It don't look like Sean Payton really care for young quarterbacks. I just don't think that he likes young quarterbacks. Maybe it's the fact that they have to develop and learn. He always seems to want to go after the guys that are like veterans, guys that been in the league for a while, guys that know how to be pros. I don't really see him like trying to get a quarterback or anything like that, man. And when he does get a quarterback, it's always late in rounds where guys probably can learn and just be a part of the depth chart and maybe just be on scout team or something. But I don't know, man. It's gonna take a special quarterback to really get the respect that Drew Brees had. Maybe like Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford might come in and have a little bit of respect. but it's gonna have to take somebody with some pedigree. Now, Aaron Rodgers, if he was to come to the Saints, he would have an immediate level of respect from Sean Payton. What became of Lil Jordan? Lil Jordan Humphrey still played for the Saints, as far as I know. He was just basically on the field because the Saints needed depth out there. Receivers were getting hurt. He was being activated, deactivated, activated again from the practice squad. But the Saints mostly had him out there just to block. I don't even think he had a target last season. I think Tom Savage was a good backup quarterback. Really? Let me finish reading this, though. I think Tom Savage was a good backup quarterback for the Saints. He did the best out of all quarterbacks of the 2018 preseason. Another good backup was Ryan Griffin. He's great backup for Brady. Best tight end in Saints history. Best tight end in Saints history. Oh, let me see. Best tight end in Saints history. That's a tough one to me. Man, I gotta go with my guy. I gotta go with my guy Cam Cleveland, man. Shouts out to Cam Cleveland. You know what I'm saying? Like that's my favorite tight end on the Saints team. You know what I'm saying? Like Cam Cleveland was that guy. You know what I'm saying? I feel like the Saints like really lost something when Cam Cleveland was with the Saints, man. They didn't want to pay him for some apparent reason. And I think he left. I think he went to New England or something like that, man. But Cam Cleveland always going to be my favorite tight end for the New Orleans Saints. Then after him, man, that's a tough one right here. I like Jared Cook, man, but he hasn't really solidified himself. And I like Josh Hill, man. I mean, Jeremy Shockey, he can go kick rocks. His old tattletale self. But, I have to say Cam Cleveland. Cam Cleveland. Somebody said, remember Boo Williams. Yeah, I remember Boo Williams. I remember Boo Williams had an opportunity for the Saints to make the playoffs. And Boo Williams decided to catch the ball, get a first down, then run backwards and lose the first down. I do remember that from Boo Williams. And I remember him not living up to his potential. I definitely remember that. Can't be named Boo Williams, have a beast name like that, and all of a sudden, you know what I'm saying, just nah. Somebody, man, Tom Savage, man. I'd rather have Ben Savage on there. Give me, you know what I'm saying? Give me Ben Savage. You know what I'm saying? Like, give me Corey Matthews. I'd rather have Corey Matthews, Fred Savage, his brother from the Wonder Years, than have Tom Savage. Give me Macho Man Randy Savage. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, give me him. You know what I'm saying? Tom Savage? No, sir. No, sir. I would never. Tom Savage was 100% grade A trash, okay? He had the opportunity for the Houston Texans to actually prove himself, and he went out there and laid an egg, okay? I think he even played for the New England Patriots. I think he came out of Pittsburgh, if I'm not mistaken. Straight up 100% trash, okay? I could think of a million other Savages that, you know what I'm saying, I would have before Tom Savage, okay? Give me Lil Webby, Trill ENT Young Savage. Don't give me Tom Savage. I ain't feeling that. Not feeling it. Jimmy Graham or Wesley Walls, man. Jimmy Graham would never be one of my favorites. I don't care how many numbers he put up. Say, bro, off topic, you're a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. No, I'm not, man. I'm a member of Iota Phi Theta. We're part of the Divine Nine. We're the last what they call African American fraternity, invented back in 1963 at Morgan State University. So they were the first, and we are the last. You see, Josh Hill is the most underrated Saints player in the NFL. That man can block way better than Gronk and can catch the ball at big moments. Yeah, I think the Saints, when he went down in NFC Championship game, I think it really hurt the Saints. Sean Payton even said that. He said once we lost Josh Hill to a concussion, he said we had to eliminate about 42 plays. I'm like, wow, 42? And he was out there eating in the first quarter, man. I don't know if people paid attention to that, but Josh Hill was doing his thing. Saints always seem to have bad luck in the playoffs. Y'all notice that? I mean, it seems like when a game really on the line, the Saints always end up losing. They always end up losing a key player. Like you look at the divisional round when they played San Francisco, Pierre Thomas got knocked out of the game. You look at the divisional round with the Eagles, Sheldon Rankins got knocked out of the game. You look at even regular season, big games, San Francisco. Garrett Cook got knocked out the game. He had 2 receptions and 2 touchdowns, eating out there. And then you have it just seems like to me like there's always like some injuries or whatever like that in big games. I mean, Josh Hill got knocked out of the Rams game. They just have bad luck when it comes to the postseason, man. They always have like a player that always seems to go down and always be devastating. Like I feel like if Sheldon Rankins would have played the NFC Championship game, if Josh Hill would have been there, I think the Saints would have got past the Rams. But we do thank the snitch for his services. Yeah, I mean he caught a touchdown in the Super Bowl. Worst quarterback in the NFL history. Worst quarterback in NFL history? Oh, man. Stoney Case. Stoney Case is the worst quarterback in the history of the NFL. Now, we talking about the worst quarterback in the history of the New Orleans Saints. Look no further than Heath Shuler. Trash. An abomination. The quarterbacks everywhere. Gotcha, bro. We are all family. Sean, like I said, man, if you were the one that commented about Ben Savage, but the Tom Savage, he was talking about, I guess he talking about the fraternities. Yeah, man, I thought you was the one to talk about Tom Savage. Nah. But yeah, man, we all family, man. I ain't got nothing against no other Greek organizations. I don't roll like that. It's about what your interest is and what matters to you. Like what made you want to join these organizations? We all supposed to be about community service and giving back to our communities and, out here tutoring the young kids and also, paying our dues or whatever. So shouts out to every Greek organization out there. They underestimated teams in the playoffs and teams target their best players. Yeah, I can agree with that, E, to a certain extent. But, I mean, the Saints, they play like a different team in the playoffs. It seems like, they forget how good they are in the playoffs for some apparent reason. Lattimore to P-Rob gave up that deep pass. Yeah, man, Lattimore ended up getting hurt, and then P-Rob ended up being in the game, and they took advantage of that quick. That was a smart play. That was a smart play by, Mike Zimmer and crew. That was smart, for them to go after a guy that they know was the weak link of the secondary at that time. It's kind of the same way back in the day. Let's look at Super Bowl 44. When I think who was out? I think Tracy Porter left out the game and Usama Young was in, and they ended up throwing that pass to Pierre Garçon. Like teams do that. They watch it. They look who in the game and they're like, okay, man, we're gonna take advantage of this matchup right here. So that was good. That was a good offensive strategy by them. What do you think about Archie Manning when he played for the New Orleans Saints? What's your opinion on that player? Well, that's way before my time right there, but I do have an appreciation for Archie Manning. My grandmother, she loves the New Orleans Saints because of him. I feel like Archie Manning just got the bad, he just got the bad end of the stick. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he just went to a team that was just god-awful. They couldn't protect for him. The man was running for his life. And I feel like the Saints teams that they had cost them opportunity at the Hall of Fame. So that's what I think about them. But if they had a better team, if Archie Manning played for like Jim Mora, if he was in that era, I think the Saints probably would have been in the Super Bowl somewhere. That's just my honest opinion. 06, Blend or something like that. From the highlights that I have seen of Archie Manning, he had to run for his life and had little talent. Yeah, man, he had no talent. That was during a time when they ain't had no salary cap. So, that's the reason why you seen the Steelers in the 70s and stuff like that, taking over. Because, the families that owned the team, the Rooneys, they ended up paying these players. They was able to pay, you know what I'm saying, Mean Joe Green. They was able to pay, you know what I'm saying, Jack Lambert. They was able to pay Franco Harris, Stalwart and Swine and Terry Bradshaw and all those other cats out there. They were able to pay them, you know. So that was the reason why they were so successful. Al Davis, he was able to pay, you know what I'm saying, all these different players that were on the team. You know, he was able to pay those guys. So that was the reason why you seen the Raiders and you seen the Steelers and, you know what I'm saying, you seen all those guys that were in, you know, in the playoffs and, you know what I'm saying, all the time because they were paying these guys. I mean, same thing with the Dallas Cowboys, Staubach and, you know what I'm saying, all them other cats, you know what I'm saying, that played for them. I can't forget about, Casper, the Ghost from the from the Raiders. I mean, these guys had unlimited bankroll at that time, you know. But then, you know, you look at some of these players that, you know, now the salary cap and stuff like that. That's when you start seeing some of those players and those organizations that dominated. They weren't able to dominate anymore because, you know, they had the salary cap. So, what are your thoughts on Trotman, our rookie tight end? I think he has all the tools to be one of the best tight ends in the game, and I think that the Saints got to steal. I see him doing real big things pending injury. What about Eli Manning Hall of Fame chances? I think he gonna get in, but he ain't gonna get at the five. I mean, like he ain't gonna be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He probably gonna be like one of those guys that as time progress. And you know, like they always have like that senior class or whatever like that, and guys that we don't remember played. He probably gonna fall into that category. I think he probably gonna end up in the Hall of Fame probably about 10 years from now. You know what I'm saying? Like 10, 15 years from now. That's the way I feel about him because even though he had those 2 Super Bowls, I mean, he wasn't up here taking the league by storm. He just played really well in big games. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what you can really truly say about him. You know, and I'm trying to think of that quarterback that everybody like Ken Stabler, right? Now that is a perfect example. He reminds me of a modern day Ken Stabler. Ken Stabler was really good for the Raiders. He was winning games. He was getting to the Super Bowl. You know, going toe to toe with the Steelers every single year. Finally won a Super Bowl, but look how long it took Ken Stabler to get to the Hall of Fame. That's who Eli Manning reminds me of. He reminds me of Ken Stabler. That's the perfect example. So a guy that can put up the numbers, a guy that was a household name, a guy that was well respected, but it took a while for him to make the Hall of Fame. I think Ken Stabler made the Hall of Fame maybe like 3-4 years ago. We always talking about the secondary. What about Cam Jordan and Sheldon Rankins? You barely see them during fourth quarter. Don't bring no pressure at all. Man, I'm not gonna say it on Cam Jordan. I've seen Cam Jordan step up in big games. I've seen Cam Jordan step up late in games and overtime and stuff like that. Get pressure on quarterbacks. Can't forget about one of the games that we all love against him in the Washington Redskins when the Saints actually forced overtime in the Superdome. I mean, Cam Jordan was the one that got the sack. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, Cam Jordan steps up in big moments. Sheldon Rankins was also another person that got a sack. It was back-to-back sacks, if I'm not mistaken. So, dude can't do it on his own, man. That's the thing. Like when players like Sheldon Rankins and Marcus Davenport on the sidelines, they give teams an opportunity to double Cam Jordan because they don't respect the power of the technique of Trey Hendrickson or don't respect the power and the technique of a young Carl Granderson. So these guys, going to have to stay healthy. That's the reason why, we really have not got a huge sample size of the Saints front line with both Rankins and Davenport being a part of it. We've seen a couple times, and you have to admit, Who Dat Nation. I know Who Dat Nation said this, but I'm talking to the entire Who Dat Nation right now. But you have to admit that when they are healthy, like they were dominating, man. Like those games where the Saints didn't have Drew Brees, that defense was dominating. And Rankins and Davenport were a part of that rotation. They were starting in the game. So we only see it in small sample sizes. We only see it for about 2 weeks, then one of them hurt, or 1 week and somebody hurt. So interesting to see how they are going to be down the line. What kind of impact do you think Cesar Ruiz will make on the team? I think he's gonna make an immediate impact. I like Cesar Ruiz. Like, don't get me wrong. I was mad during the draft. That right there was probably one of my most legendary rants. I would say, if I would have to choose, it would be that and the wild card game against the Minnesota Vikings. But nevertheless, man, it was never nothing against Cesar Ruiz. You know what I'm saying? As far as his talent, I think he has a lot of talent. I think he's going to make an immediate impact, and I think that he's going to be a really good, solid offensive lineman. So I'm looking forward to seeing him play. He was the best tight end in his rookie class. I agree with that. I think Tremont will eventually take Hill's spot at tight end. Yep. Who's going to step up at running back? Hopefully the running backs that we have. And hopefully Sean Payton give them the ball. A new running back isn't urgent, but in time. I don't agree with that. I don't think we've seen enough out of Latavius Murray, Dwayne Washington, or Alvin Kamara for us to make this assessment. I really honestly believe that. And no disrespect to anybody, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but I don't think that that's fair to those guys for people to be making these these statements right now, because quite frankly, Sean Payton doesn't do enough with them for us to actually come to that conclusion to say these guys aren't it. That's just the truth. He does not run the ball enough for us to be like, man, these guys not good enough. I mean, you can get another running back up in here and it still be the same result, because you don't give these guys an opportunity. Unless these guys are like, running the ball like you playing Madden on rookie or something like that, where they just breaking off and getting 8 and 9 yards of carry every time, then Sean Payton ain't gonna commit to those guys. That's just a fact. I don't care who you put out there. You can put Walter Payton out there. You put Eric Dickerson out there. You put a young Adrian Peterson out there. You can put Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith, whoever you want out there. You're still gonna be the same result, okay? Because Sean Payton is not patient enough to allow the running game to develop over the course of a game. That's just a fact. And anybody that's saying, man, we need new running backs, I feel like you're not looking at this objectively, because Sean Payton, any game you go to, you can watch any game, you can look at any game you want. Take your pick. I don't care. Pick at random. If the Saints are successful at running the football that day, watch how many yard average the running back has. Watch how many carries that person has. They're running carries, and average is going to be like off the charts. Okay, that's the only way he's gonna start running the football. If you can tell, and I say this all the time, you can literally tell if the Saints are going to run the football throughout the game. If the first quarter happens and Drew Brees hands the ball off to Alvin Kamara and he gets 9 yards the first play and then 7 yards the next play, 9 times out of 10 the Saints are going to run that ball for the rest of the day. But if it comes down to if the Saints run the ball, it's going to be 2 yards right here, 3 yards right here, 2 yards right here. They're going to be throwing the ball for the rest of the game because Sean Payton is impatient with the running game. And like I said, anybody you can pick, I don't care who it is. It can be any top rookie that can come in that you think can change and rock the foundation of an organization. Anybody you want, it's going to be the same result because he refused to commit to guys unless they're running at a very high average. You said his name. I'm about to ask about. People forget about Carl Granderson. Do you think he'll get more snaps after putting up some decent plays last year? Yeah, I think he's going to get some snaps, man. I mean, he had to get back into playing shape. I mean, you spend 6 months in prison, before you actually, come out and play for the Saints or whatever, so he had to get back in shape. I feel like he's going to come into camp in shape, and I think he's going to make an impact. I think that he's grateful that the Saints actually took a chance on him. The Saints didn't give up on him after all the stuff happened. They believe in his ability. They believe in his upside. So, I think that he's going to make an impact. I think he's going to be really good in the rotation. What do you think? What do I think about Alvin Kamara? I think he's going to have a good season. Shot Tuttle clown Matt Ryan. Yeah, he definitely did. Yeah, he definitely did. Sean Payton needs to simplify taking the ball out of Drew Brees' hands from time to time. We got Kamara and Murray, two thoroughbreds that can run the rock and change the game. Real talk. Yeah, I agree with that. You know what I'm saying? I agree with that. He just don't run with him. And when you don't use something, man, it's easy for people on the outside looking in saying, man, we don't have that, but they do. And that's one of the things that I feel like we need to pay attention to. They actually have what they need as far as with the running backs are concerned. We just not using these guys, and it's unfortunate because they have a lot to offer the team. Latavius Murray has a lot to offer the team, and so does Alvin Kamara, and even Dwayne Washington. I think all three of these guys have something to offer the team, and it's Sean Payton the reason why. It's Sean Payton the reason why. He's not using these guys. When Saints football season starts, do you go live after the game and analyze it? Absolutely, man. I go live after every game the New Orleans Saints play. Every last one of them. Like win or lose, I'm there. And I have pre-game live. Like I do that like on Saturday nights when I analyze the game. And I'm probably most likely gonna be doing pre-game and I'm gonna do post-game. I'm probably gonna start doing that too, folks. So be on the lookout for that. I'm gonna be doing pre-game and post-game. I have to figure out how I'm gonna do it because sometimes, man, my fiance has to work on Sundays, and I have to kind of focus on my son and stuff like that. And he's at that age where, if he sees me in front of a camera, a computer screen, he wants to sit on my lap and touch all the buttons and mess with the mouse and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of hard to do that, and focus on what I need to do. So probably gonna have to find ways to do that. Probably gonna have to do some audio stuff. I don't know, but I'm definitely gonna be going live after every Saints game. You should call Sean Payton and tell him to run the rock more. Yeah, I mean, I don't think he gonna listen to me. He ain't listen to the guy at Ross's, so I know he ain't gonna listen to me. It was good talking to you. I gotta head out. Peace out. Thanks for the awesome videos you make. Man, Vernon, thank you very much for checking it out. I'm actually about to check out too, man, because I'm about to go live on my radio show. It starts at 2 p.m. Eastern time, so about to go ahead and get the live started, man. And thank y'all very much for checking out the live edition of the State of the Saints podcast. And be sure, if you have not already, please press the subscription button so you can learn. I don't say learn, but you can learn more. Hear more about the State of the Saints, by subscribing, looking at some of the previous videos that I made. Also, Facebook.com, search The State of the Saints podcast, where I put up different news articles and stuff like that about the New Orleans Saints. And thank you all for your love and your support, man. I hope you all have a great and productive day. And you can check me out, WLGI.org. I'll put it down in the description, man. But I'm on 90.9 FM in Hemingway, South Carolina. I'm on the air from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. Okay, so I'll put it down, and I'll just do that right now. Let me see if I can. Well, I don't know if I can do the chats just yet. But it is WLGI.org. WLGI.org. So if you want to check it out, I'm on there from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. So thank you all very much. Make sure you have a great and productive day once again. And like always,